Broadcasting from the heart of the Colorado Rockies, it's 4th and 99 with your hosts, David Slade, Keith Brookman, and Matt Stappiero. Now let's talk football here on 4th and 99.
Hey everybody, welcome to 4th and 99. I'm going to be your host today. My name is Matt Stappiero and I got Keith Brookman with me as always. Man, Keith, it's been rough. Real quick, before we dive into it though, we got to pay the bills real quick. Today's show will be brought to you by Willow Seasonings and Blends LLC. Put a little spice into your life. You know who could use a little spice in their life today, Keith?
Who's that, buddy?
Every aspect of the Denver Broncos. All three phases of the game could have used a little spice in their life. David Slade was there. We're minus Dave. He was at the game. So dang it, Dave, maybe you should have been throwing some Willow onto the field and spicing up this horrific game plan throughout both sides of the football.
That's for sure. Hey, I just want to say, hey, thanks to everybody for jumping on. Appreciate you jumping in here. Remember, like, share, subscribe, do all those clicky things on the keyboard things to where you're always making sure that you're seeing us and you're sharing it to all your friends. We appreciate you a ton. It was an absolute kind of disaster. We talked in our pregame show, right? We said the plan was probably already implemented before Shermer went onto the COVID list. Well, I don't know what game plan that was, but it goes in the trash bin. It seemed like a rewind to all our frustrations that we had seen prior to the Dallas game, for sure.
I mean, we talk about the panic sheet. This was far worse than Pat Shermer's panic sheet, and we've already tossed that aside a few times. We've ripped it up. Vic Fangio's been rumored to throw it in the shredder. But let's just be real. I don't even know what to call that offensive performance. We talked about it. Pound the rock, pound the rock, pound the rock. And it was working. The run game looked well in both the first and the second half. We'll kind of look at it on a half-by-half basis. The first half, it was a slow and ugly start. The very first drive for the offense, punched in the mouth. I mean, I guess you could say defensively, they got punched in the mouth as well.
It was absolutely coming out of the game. That's the last thing you want to see. They looked in control as they marched down the field. They absolutely were owned on that first drive. You know, it's one of those things where you're already saying, okay, we got to rebound from this. You know, we need to come out and we need to play better. And boy, did that not happen.
Absolutely. So we'll like I said, we're gonna kind of break it down half by half. We'll start with the defense because that's how the game started. Broncos started on defense. We just said they got punched in the mouth the very first drive. I'm gonna call Vic Fangio out on this. You know, one thing that we highlighted, as well as every single host you could think of out there highlighted, is you cannot commit to this overuse of the blitz. That he was going in zero package over and over and over again. He was so concerned about what Jalen Hurts could do with his legs that he left guys that we highlighted out in the pregame show who would be a liability. We highlighted Kyle Fuller. We said he doesn't have the speed to sit with Devontae Smith, doesn't have the speed to keep up with Rager. Patrick Surtain is coming off an injury, and you know he's not 100%, but we're leaving him out on an island because we're going to zero blitz. Yeah. And then it's just
for me. I think, you know, it's just kind of piggybacking off that just for a second. I expected some man concept. I wanted man maybe on those outside guys with safeties helping from over the top, right? With a zone underneath. No, if we went man, we went man, and there was nothing but zero blitz. At one point on my broadcast, they were saying that 40%. At that one, 40 to 50% of all the dropbacks, we came with a zero blitz, and I don't think it got any better after we got that stat hit the airwaves in the second quarter. So it was a predictable one, and one note that I wrote down as I was watching the game is there was too many times. I don't know if it was cadence from Jalen Hurts or what, but we showed our blitz way too many times jumped in. All of a sudden we back off. They know we're coming. They know where we're coming from. They were able to eat up our blitz even when we were trying to get away with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And even on top of that, like we said, the linebackers were instructed. Kenny Young, Baron Browning, Robinson after he went in there, their priority was Hurts. And we knew that the way that the RPO was coming, the linebackers were dialed in. Leaving the middle of the field wide open. They were so worried about Hurts tucking it in and going around that edge and not trusting the young outside linebackers in Malik Reed and Jonathan Cooper. What happened was their interior offensive line destroyed our interior defensive line today. I mean, I'm 5'6" and 210. So on a bad day, I might have been able to get a good 15-yard run in those freaking holes today, man. It was it was bad.
Man, there were absolutely some alleys. I don't know what our preparation for the RPO game was, but also throw that preparation out the window because we didn't look like we knew how to defend it. Well, especially again, if you're going to be running zero blitz, you're just in a terrible position, especially, if that run does come right up the gut, which is exactly where they were going. If you don't bottle it up and you don't get it at the line of scrimmage, forget it. You're second, third, tier of the defense at that point, and you're gobbling up those 10+ yard gains that they're doing time after time.
Yeah, and I mean, as we kind of go back and we look at the first half, we just focus on the defense first half. This wasn't Philadelphia running away and just playing great football. This was you being, like you said, predictable, committing to something you don't have the personnel to do, and simply being out-coached by a rookie head coach. Vic Fangio, the defensive guru, was out-coached in the first half. We've seen some adjustments kind of happen later on in the second half, which we'll talk about. But the fear for the RPO it just goes to prove how much of an old-school coach Vic Fangio is. He doesn't have an answer for it.
Yeah.
I don't know if he ever will.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think he also just has this mindset of he wants to do exactly what he wants to do. You know what I mean? I just don't feel like he game plans well to the opponent very well. You know what I mean? Throughout the game, if anybody again was listening to the broadcast, they kept saying, "I think he's bringing the same game plan as he brought against Baltimore." Well, I hope not. That was a terrible, terrible game for us where we lost. Why would you bring that game plan? But boy, they were right, man. They nailed it on the head. It looked like almost the exact same game plan as we had. And like I said, I don't want guys that are spying in and supposed to be looking at Jalen Hurts when we're talking about rookie guys. You know what I mean? They're freezing in position. You either got to pursue or you got to fall back in coverage, one of the two, whatever the situation happens to be. It just puts them in a really bad position. So I do got to say, we did better in the second half, obviously, at containing Jalen Hurts, but we'll get to the second half a little bit later.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just to stick on the defense for, just a couple more minutes here. I mean, it wasn't all horrific. I mean, Kenny Young continues to be a bright spot on this defense. Was he caught out of position a couple of times? Absolutely. But I mean, he's been here 3 weeks. He's got the green dot on the helmet. The dude is out there and he's throwing. I mean, the dude throws down. I mean, he comes down to hit you with a purpose. I mean, he does play pretty solid coverage so far. I struggle to find plays where I don't see him somewhere around the ball carrier. So definitely some bright spots. Patrick Surtain playing on a bum knee, didn't play horrible. I mean, that was about as good as coverage as you could get on that play where Devontae Smith came down with the touchdown. I mean, he couldn't have done much better. I mean, other than, get a hand on the ball. But I mean, he was in perfect position. So I'll give him his kudos where it's due. As I was worried to play him today. But if he had not been in the game, we'd be looking at a far worse score.
Yeah, he not only did he make that breakup in the end zone, or he had the opportunity to make the breakup in the end zone. He was all over in coverage. He had arms up in between the receiver and the ball. He was doing just about everything he could Happy birthday to Devontae Smith, by the way. I didn't realize it was his birthday, but happy birthday to him because he went 4 for 66 with 2 TDs on us today. So Surtain played a fantastic game. There was another opportunity, I know, at one part of the game too, where he actually had an opportunity on an interception. Should have been an interception for Surtain as well.
That's why he plays That's why he plays defense.
Yeah.
That's why he plays defense.
He showed up pretty well today, all in all, coming off an injury. Can't fault that guy at all.
Absolutely not.
I think
so there was some bright spots in the first half in those two guys. I mean, those guys, they stayed true to what they were supposed to be doing. They played good football. It was a shame to see Baron Browning go down with an injury or re-aggravate his back injury. So we struggle to find positives, but at least there was something positive in the first half defensively. As we go to the second half, it gets a little bit better, but let's focus on first half offense right now. Facebook user brought up a great point up here a few minutes ago, where it says, why is Javonte Williams not being utilized more often, averaging 6 yards a carry? And I have the simple answer for it. It is that Melvin Gordon is being paid to be the bell cow, and they're going to feed him that. And that's just an unfortunate way the NFL works sometimes. And that's what's happening. We can go back and highlight a play where we're going to probably ring, Melvin Gordon a new one because of the, what eventually the deflation of the game fell on, at his feet. Yeah. And it just goes to show, like, Williams is the hot hand. I told you this in the chat. I told this in our other group chat. Javonte Williams is like the Energizer Bunny to this team. When he is feeling it, the momentum is across the board. They're playing lights out. He just energizes the team. We don't have very many guys who can just spark the team. And to be honest, he may be the only one right now. Yeah. He really may be the only spark that this team has. And that's unfortunate, but it just goes to show you that we're a 5-5 football team for a reason.
Yeah. We had a Facebook user just kind of chime in. He said, blame the defense. I 100% agree that we need to blame the defense, especially in that first half. If you look at the stats, one thing that we talked about that they need to go in, at least I spoke about in our pregame show, is getting that run game stopped. Run statistics for the first half, Jalen Hurts goes 5 for 52. Howard goes 6 for 29. Scott goes 6 for 22. These are first half stats. That's 16 runs for dang near 110 yards, 100 to 110 yards in the first half. So just between those guys, Gainwell came in with with another 5 yards as well. So this defense absolutely needs to be playing better. And there's a lot of blame to go onto this defense. I think, again, it has a lot to do with schematic in the defense, not just the players on the field, though. Jumping over to that offense, though, and again, the Facebook user or the Facebook mention that we got on Williams, I think we just need to start, pounding the table for Williams to be the one back in a two back system, because there's not very many true bell cows in the NFL anymore who is just a one back system, who the guy's just getting spelled from time to time just to give him a breather. I can think of a guy down in Tennessee who was that guy, but even if you look to a place like Dallas, a team we played last week, it's become Ezekiel Elliott, it's become Pollard, and it's a two-back system. So we just need to get Williams as the one back, not the two back.
Facebook user popped up again. Blame the defense who shut out the Eagles, division rivals. Was it a complete opposite of today's? It was a collaborative effort. Absolutely. This was I called it a collaborative dumpster fire. That's exactly what this is. I mean, we could argue special teams played decent, but aside from that, it was just a horrible performance altogether. Going back to the offense where we're at right now. Real quick. You brought up some stats. I think at halftime though, Jalen Hurts was like 14 for 16 for over 100 yards. I think that's what he closed out the first half with.
I have 15 for 20.
That is awful defense in the first half, followed by even a worse offensive performance. The offense woes kind of continued through the game. They looked great, and they highlighted this in the commentary over and over again. They were playing great between the 20s. We were getting to the red zone and just completely stifling, completely bottoming out. You know what I was getting? Flashbacks of last year where Drew Lock would get us to the 20-yard line and then fizzles out.
Yeah.
It's the same inconsistent quarterback play, but now we just have a different guy doing it. And do we see it's going to come back to it? Now we're going to hear just lock this, lock that. He's coming back from the bye. We can address that towards the end of the show.
Yeah.
But the same thing happened. We're having inconsistent quarterback play for another consecutive season. Teddy Bridgewater looked atrocious in the first half. I mean, we'll get to the second half, but I'll give you a spoiler alert. Didn't look much better. But it goes back to schematics, though. You and I were just talking about this. When are we going to see these offensive coordinators, whether it's Shula, whether it's Shermer, whoever it is, stop with the old school mentality of, this is my system, you're going to run it, versus adapting to those players' strengths, adapting to those things. We argued this and pounded this table last year with Shermer and Locke. We're in the same position with a different quarterback past the halfway mark for this season. And who in the world puts Teddy Bridgewater in an empty wide set multiple times? How many times is Teddy Bridgewater sitting by himself in shotgun? What in the world is this?
Matt, we pounded the table
Keith.
Yeah, we pounded the table all pregame about what we needed to do, and we said, if you got a young offensive line, what you need to do is run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. You know, let them block, let them go downfield, let them pull it and get to that second line of the defense, you know, and pop big runs. You know, we didn't get anything going in the first half. I mean, we had 8 runs by our running backs and we had 10 throws by our quarterback. It was Teddy Bridgewater 6 for 10 for 91 yards. Gordon was 4 for 24 in a TD, and Williams was 4 for 23. We got owned on both sides of the ball in the first half. We were quite lucky that it didn't end up being a larger score than it was. And I can't remember when the Watkins drop was. If that was first half or second half for the Eagles.
Second half.
Second half. All right. Well, I'm jumping ahead.
No, I'm lying to you. I think it was right before the first half ended.
Okay. Yeah. I'll go back. I got all my notes from the game. It just seemed like it was a blurry mess by the time we got to the end of it. So
absolutely, it was utterly atrocious. But going back to the schematics of the first half, you know, I get it. You're wanting to be different. I get it. We're just trying to flush them off of what the norm is. Like you said, we already nailed it. 2 tight end sets, play action pass, efficient conversions. That's what this team needed to be, was efficient. We threw efficiency out the window in the entire game. Focusing on the first half when we're looking at those, multiple, empty sets that we ran, they weren't like deep routes. They weren't constructive. They were these awkwardly constructed routes where nothing was really going past, 18 to 20 yards. And it was just kind of just throwing everybody into the middle of the field. And it was utterly confusing. So you're putting all the receivers, all the defenders in the same spot, leaving your underneath guy open. So we're hitting him for 4 yards at a time. Yeah. It just wasn't working. And I don't know why we continuously went back to it. Yeah. And then if we go back and we look, how many plays were thrown behind the line of scrimmage? Don't understand it. Yeah. I just didn't grasp what the Shermer/Shula's idea was to attack this Eagles defense, who you and I and Dave all highlighted. 120 yards a game they were allowing rushing. 120 yards a game. Don't know what the hell the approach was.
Yeah. It was your favorite pass plays in this offense, right? Outside the numbers, isn't that where all the passes should go? Because it sure seemed like that's what they dialed up. They must have heard you wrong, Matt, because pregame you're saying, please, for whatever you do, don't just be throwing outside the numbers all day. That's not the game plan for us. You saw when we did get completions, and they, especially, again, jumping ahead, when we did get completions over the middle, they were doing quite well for us, but that's not where we decided to throw today. So it was.
Yeah, and Dave had a great point there. Dave had a great point there. We got to the red zone, and then we're seeing tight ends not be on the field. So we're running into 3 wide shotgun sets with Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, whatever the case may be. When Noah Fant electric in the red zone, we're running the ball well in the red zone. But Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams, as great as they are, in a 3-wide set, you become predictable. They know you're going to run it straight up Lloyd Cushenberry. Pick your gap. That's where it's going every single time we're in 3-wide. We don't see a zone run. We don't see a pull. It is right up the gap, right behind Cushenberry, and it results in a 1-yard play.
Yeah. We're lucky if we get 2 yards out of that play every single time, and that predictable offense. We saw nothing like we saw last week. We saw Judy looping behind on motions against Dallas. We saw allowing Teddy to be able to diagnose the defense. We saw even when we were in wide receiver sets, we saw very little motion. We saw very little to give anybody any hint of what defense they were playing against. And it ate us up, especially when, again, it seemed like all our pass plays were to the outside. Our running plays we completely abandoned in the first half. Well, we just played terrible. First half offense, I can't find much good to talk about, Matt. I'm sorry.
I'm on the Javonte Williams hype train. Let's be real. It wasn't a great first half, but like I said, the way he carries the ball, the way he carries himself is the energy that this team thrives on. I said it in the chat. 2 guys who played well, and they could have played better, of course, in the first half. Jonathan Cooper, Javonte Williams. Our entire team's backbone right now is being thrusted onto these 2 rookies. They create the energy. They create the spark for this team. The other guy, another rookie I'm going to highlight. I was a little down on him. Quinn Miners came to play today. Dude was wrecking those defensive linemen. The dude throws us some mustard, man. Yeah. He's a hard-nosed guy. He's definitely, his technique is raw and it needs to get improved.
Yeah.
But when you're out there just steamrolling dudes, man, I don't know if you even need technique at that point.
But when did you see him steamrolling dudes? When we had the running game going, right?
Exactly.
Right off the bat, they were talking. The 2 plays that I remember hearing Quinn Miner's name called was one when he was blocking all the way downfield. They're like, look at this guy. He's blocking all the way downfield. Very similar to what we saw last week in Dallas. Next thing you know, it's like, I don't know, maybe the next series of downs later, all of a sudden they're talking about Miners pulling and making the great block on the linebacker, and springing a big run. Again, the game plan is run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. God.
The other part I like about Miners, though, is even the play is kind of like getting stalled, and whether it's just like for a couple yards or it's close to a first down, the dude's burrowing downfield to blast his own teammates to give him the extra push. He completely obliterated Jerry Jeudy for an extra yard and a half. It is fantastic. I just love his dedication and his effort to want to win, to want to just get nasty. We haven't had that in a while. Yeah. We need that nasty on the offensive line. If he can improve his technique, George Payton may have found a diamond in the rough there.
Yeah, but I agree.
So I think we should transition into the second half. David Slade's comment right here, our co-host, is perfect. The "Let's Go Eagles" chants toward the end of the game were loud, sort of disheartening that our stadium has become a non-factor as an advantage for the Broncos. What a better way to transition into a lackluster second half. You talk about there was positives defensively. They made the adjustments that I was pounding the table for. We got away from the zero. We got away from the man. We dropped into a cover 2. We were playing some umbrella coverage. And the run game kind of stalled. The middle of the field was somewhat plugged up. It was better, but it still wasn't as effective as we needed it to be.
Yeah, man, I tell you, second half was just a roller coaster, right? We come out, obviously we're down, but we get in the ball in the second half, and we have this kind of long, sustained drive, go all the way down, end up getting stopped, one of the few plays that Cox made. He ended up getting hitting Williams for like a 4-yard loss, brings up 4th and goal, come out for the 22-yard field goal. What happens? It gets blocked. That, you talked about, special teams may be the only place that you can hide.
I was trying to be optimistic, Keith. I was trying to find something. I was grasping at straws.
Yeah, even the special teams didn't escape, because we basically had touchbacks all the game long, very few punts, and then we got a blocked field goal, of course, on our end. But we come back, we end up getting the 3 and out. We go down, we get this really long drive, and end up getting the field goal on that. And then after that, right after that field goal, what ends up happening? We have Simmons interception. Man, we're looking really good. It's like 2013 at this point. 27-13 at this point. So, we're going in, and all of a sudden, what happens? We all know it was the whole game changer in the entire game.
Yeah.
Gordon with the fumble. And after that, we just fell apart. We were 3 and out after that. Eagles get another field goal, put up 30-13. We had our opportunity. So,
yeah, definitely. There was a way for the Broncos to win this game. Yeah. They came out with the right mentality, but it just came back to the awkward schematics of what they wanted to do in the red zone. And why in the world is Melvin Gordon, the running back, on that down when Javonte Williams is the one who's packing the punch and ready to go? Melvin Gordon, I'm going to keep it short and simple. I don't know how many times you have to be told this. Why in the world, it's a crowd. You're running right into the teeth of the defense, and you have one hand on the ball. One hand. You didn't cover it up. You didn't burrow your head. You went in there like it was a finesse move, and you did what you did. How many times have you killed momentum by doing this? How many games last year did this happen? Yeah. You single-handedly destroyed the momentum. The loss is not on your shoulders, but you were the first domino to fall to the complete demise of this game today. Yeah, that was the first domino for the end. They were stacking those dominoes up because it was a crappy game altogether. But as soon as he fumbled, the dominoes fell and it was over.
Yeah, 100% agree. Melvin Gordon isn't like a prolific fumbler. He just seems to fumble at the worst time in the world. I would say if it's like, hey, this is a play we need to go to, and it's like, maybe not Melvin Gordon. maybe we should hand it to somebody else or call a different play. He just seems to have that knack for, like you said, it was a complete momentum killer, drive killing type of plays, or fumbles that just come at the worst time. And he once again, he does it again. It took any momentum that we had at that point, both from a offensive standpoint, from a mind standpoint in that way, from a fan standpoint, the fans were in it at that point. Again, we got the interception from Simmons. We're doing fantastic. We're marching down the field. We're knocking on the goal line, and then fumble. And that was, like you said, a great way to put it. The dominoes had stacked at that point. Things were really looking good in our favor that we'd be able to hold that last one upright. And all of a sudden we pushed it over and the whole thing just started going. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I already know this is Victor. But, there was a good point. The comment's extremely long, so I'm going to summarize it by Facebook user. It goes back to the conversation of, let's just continue to keep rolling with Teddy Bridgewater. He's 5-5, this and that. He put up a good performance at Dallas. The guy can't stay consistent. Why are we not going to Drew Lock? And it's simple, because Drew Lock, it's essentially going to be the same thing. Does he have upside? Sure, but it was inconsistent quarterback play last year. It's going to be inconsistent quarterback play most likely this year. We're going to be throwing him into the same exact situations. Aside from that, as much as I'm actually trending towards let's see what the kid can do myself, which is rare because, I'm the lock flogger. George Payton and Vic Fangio have single-handedly bought into Teddy Bridgewater as their quarterback. That's who they've elected. They've already gone out. They said, this is what we're doing. And the reason is simple. Vic Fangio is committed because he feels that if they minimize turnovers, they have a better chance of winning the game. It's not a bad idea. It's a very safe idea. And when your defense doesn't execute, when you can constantly throw out a zero blitz and get embarrassed in the first half and blow your momentum, Sometimes you need to have a little risk in your life, and it may be time to see what that risk looks like. The Facebook user follows up that this is where I wanted it to lead to. I'll let you talk. I know you're still on lock, but it says if everybody wants Aaron Rodgers, why are we still talking Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater? Well, I don't know where your stance on that, but today it made the quarterback picture look a lot murkier for next year.
Yeah, you know where I stand on any big free agent older quarterback signings. Congratulations to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in landing Tom Brady and still having a viable quarterback later in his years. That's an anomaly. I don't expect to get more than 2 to 3 years out of an Aaron Rodgers. And at what price are you paying him? And at what price are you paying for the rest of your team? So throw that out the window. The murkiness certainly did come in. The waters were seeming to clear as we came through Dallas. They were looking pretty blue. Seemed like we were maybe getting into some nice weather, maybe, or something like that, because the weather, they were started to clear out, and then holy crap, all of a sudden it seemed like somebody threw dirt in that water, right? It got murky pretty good today.
And
it doesn't matter if it's Drew Lock, though, and it doesn't matter if it's Teddy Bridgewater. What I saw, again, was an offensive plan that didn't want to support the run game, that relied on the passing game. And if you're going to be that conservative offense, if you want to be conservative and make sure you just don't turn the ball over, you ended up with 36 pass attempts from Teddy Bridgewater today compared to 17 running attempts between our two running backs. That's not a conservative approach. Not a conservative approach. If you want to be conservative, be conservative. I want to see that flipped. I want to see Teddy Bridgewater closer to 17 pass attempts, and I want to see 30-plus runs for the running backs, because that's a game plan for success, especially with Teddy Bridgewater as our QB. But underneath this offensive system, I don't have any more faith that Drew Lock could come out there and perform and put us in a better position, other than maybe what was going on at the end of the game if you watched it to the very end, because Teddy Bridgewater was throwing passes out of bounds, nowhere near guys, sailing it out, not even giving yourself a chance on fourth down at the very end of the game. It was very odd and completely different than anything I've seen from Teddy Bridgewater. Maybe at that point, Drew Lock should have been out there, and makes me really question what we have in Teddy Bridgewater going forward, possibly. How about you, Matt?
I think it just goes back to what you're saying. Does this awkward use of him that's causing him to fly out of what his natural comfort zone is, how much is that screwing up his timing, his mechanism? Because we got to remember, we know he is a very limited quarterback. We know he is a very systematic quarterback. How much of this awful game planning we're forcing him to be? I mean, I'll even go on and say it. We're forcing him to be what Drew Lock failed to be last year. We're trying to force him to go out there and play like Patrick Mahomes. We're throwing close to 40 times a game. We are solely putting this game on Teddy Bridgewater when we know that he's not built to carry it. This team is built on those running backs. This team is built on the nastiness of that offensive line to open up those holes for him. Drew Lock, does he come in and do we get more points per game? Possibly. But if you're scoring 30 points per game and you have 3 picks, because let's be real, we've seen it happen, it doesn't matter. It's the same screwed up equation. We're just happy that we looked a little bit more lively. That's what it bakes down to. It's still the same crappy equation.
Yeah. Game plan scheme until they get it changed. We've seen where we're successful. We were successful last week, and these numbers were almost completely flipped. Even going into the second half, all of a sudden we decide to fix our defense, right? We decide to go out there and we're not playing that zero blitz. We start going into this this zone scheme. We start looking great on defense. Jalen Hurts starts looking actually a little bit confused as they start the second half. And what do? We change perfectly on the defensive side of things. And then, man, I tell you what, I think I found it here. Where is it? All of a sudden, I figured it out, man.
Oh my God, there it is.
Yeah, I
You
found it. I
it.
confiscated it. I'm hoping that I can keep it out of the hands of Denver Bronco personnel.
Well, we could
We got
have
to get
used
rid
that
of this
today
panic
versus
sheet, Matt. I
whatever the
found it.
hell
It's right
Sheila
here.
threw
For
out
those of
there.
you who can't see, if you're just listening, we got the panic sheet, man. We can possibly. Do I dare?
Do it. Just get. I mean, well, I
No,
mean,
no.
we
I'll
might need
keep
to
it.
save that. That would have
I
been
think it might
useful.
be some
That would
good
have been
stuff in there.
useful
We'll keep
today,
it.
Keith. We could have used the panic sheet because at least it would have consisted of some more constructed offense than throwing your limited quarterback in empty sets. But anyways, but there's a comment here that is. I love how the combo is different from last year. Locke sucks to oh no, Teddy B is awesome. That's not what we're saying here. That is absolutely not what we're saying here. What we're saying here is it's the same problem. Both quarterbacks are not performing well. The game plan is not being suited to him. As much as we all want to be like, oh, Drew Lock's this great quarterback, can throw the ball, this and that. Drew Lock relies on his arm way too much, and he thrived in a system that was similar to Teddy Bridgewater's efficiency style of system, relying on the run, play action passes, 2 tight end sets. Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater aren't that far off of a quarterback. Drew Lock is more physical ability. He's more mobile. He does have a better arm. But then you look at the pros and cons of Teddy. What he lacks in arm strength and what he lacks in mobility, he's got way more upstairs in the efficiency side. So if we can merge them together somehow, like we get a Drew Bridgewater or a Teddy Lock, maybe we'd have something that was competent to throw out there. But the problem is it's a broken system with 2 quarterbacks that are pretty similar in how they were in what they were thriving in. And that's just what it is. Drew Lock needs 2 tight ends just as much as Teddy Bridgewater does. And Teddy Bridgewater at least doesn't throw 3 picks a game when we're forcing him to be uncomfortable.
I'll just throw this back out to all of our subscribers, listeners. Thank you for all your likes and your listens and your alerts. I want to know what quarterbacks are out there in the league that can survive a 17 running attempts in a game, putting the offense completely on you behind, as they pointed out from the very get-go, and as we pointed out in the pregame show, a beat up, plugged in offensive line that is backups upon rookies, upon your leadership being young as young can be on that offensive line. No quarterback in this league wants to go out there and say, okay, you give me the one of the least talented offensive lines starting this Sunday. And I mean, just from overall years of talent in the league. And I'm going to stand behind there, and it's going to be all on me. And on top of that, we're going to have a terrible game plan as far as our passing routes are concerned. No. Tell me the quarterback that would want to play behind this offensive line playing in this scheme this Sunday, the Pat Shurmur, the Mike Shula offense that we put out there. Tell me what quarterback would not only like it, but thrive in that offense. There's not very many guys out there. I'm sorry.
No, there's not that many out there. I can name probably most of them on my hand. Aaron Rodgers has the talent to do it, but let's look at his stats from today. 37 passing attempts and over 30 rushing attempts. We talk about Russell Wilson, 40 passing attempts and 16 rushing attempts. You know what happened to them? They got goose-egged by the Packers today.
Yep.
There's not very many quarterbacks that could do that efficiently. The run game is something that we need to have. Whether it's Teddy Bridgewater, whether you want Aaron Rodgers, the run game is something this team needs. It don't matter who you throw out there. If we're not running the ball efficiently, we're not winning games. It's just what it is.
Yeah. All you've done is shifted the problem. You can go to Drew Lock, and all of a sudden you're going to be able to push that ball down the field a little bit. Maybe you have enough zip on that ball to be able to hit that outside receiver. But at the same time, if you're also expecting him to get to the third, fourth read or come back to the second read in the pass play, that's not a Drew Lock thing. So you just gave out that ability to be able to diagnose out there. Maybe he gets better, but again, there's hardly anybody that can survive in the offense that this offensive coaching staff has decided to put out time and time again. And we thought we got away from it, and we went right back to it this week.
Yeah, and I think our opinion is somewhat misconstrued. In no way are we standing by Teddy Bridgewater's abysmal performance today. And we're not saying that it couldn't be Drew Lock who could do just as well or possibly a tad better. the bottom line, I think, of what Keith and I are trying to get at here is the quarterback of the future is very well not on this roster. What you have, if Bridgewater does come back, what you have is a 1 to 2 year bridge. Unfortunately, because these massive inflation of the quarterback position, you are going to have to pay him to come back. You voided out the last year of his deal. If you cannot obtain Rodgers, you can obtain Wilson, which you and I are 100% in agreement, totally against it.
Yeah.
Then that's your only option. I mean, is there okay, let's switch it up. You can go get a Mitchell Trubisky. You could go do this or what. But the bottom line is it's time to invest in the quarterback in the draft. No more excuses. I'm not on board for another 3-year window. Let's dump $150 million into Aaron Rodgers. Let's dump 3 years of draft picks into him and then be on another cycle of a demise that's going to put us 5 years again. So we could be the laughing stock, be called the Denver Browns again. We need to end that stigma. The stigma of revamping with a veteran quarterback has failed to work for 5 consecutive years. It worked with Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning, that's a unicorn effect. Aaron Rodgers could come here and be a fraction of the player he was in Green Bay. He doesn't got Devontae Adams. He doesn't have David Bakhtiari. He's got Garrett Bowles. That's a humongous talent gap. That's a humongous difference in coaching styles. Matt LaFleur versus Vic Fangio. Come on now. Or you can say Pat Shurmur. Don't even get me started. Don't even get me started. It's not going to be the same thing. Everyone just pictures this as, let's trade our entire franchise and get this guy who's going to come in and do it. Peyton Manning was a GOAT. Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback, but he's not on the level of Peyton Manning is up here. That's where it's at.
I won't even go where it needs to be at up here because I think he's actually a more physically gifted quarterback than what we got in Peyton Manning, especially post-injury on his neck, right? I think he has all the intangibles to make that up. The problem is that Peyton Manning did come off an injury. He wasn't a break-the-bank player. He brought in additional players, and that's where he really became the unicorn. That's something that Aaron Rodgers is not looking for. Aaron Rodgers isn't looking to come in and take a little bit less money so that he can build something in Denver. He's not looking at taking a little less money because of some type of injury or some type of reasoning behind him taking more money. No, he's expecting all the money. And so it's one of the worst case scenarios you can be in if that guy doesn't end up performing on the field. And I'm sorry, that's just, again, like you said, Matt, not someplace I want to put our franchise in for the next 3, 5, 7 years, however it ends up being after we end up having to make up for a mistake.
Yeah. And there was a comment here that says Bakhtiari hasn't played all season. I know he hasn't played all season, but that's something that Aaron Rodgers has been used to. The talent level between what was there and what is here is significantly different. You bring in Devontae Adams and Courtland Sutton. The gap is astronomical. Devontae Adams is a significantly better receiver. That's just what it is. Okay, I'm just saying there's a significant gap. We're looking at a team that's going to have 11 out of 22 starters scheduled to be UFAs. I get that, but our depth is taking a hit. We go from 53 plus practice squad. I can't remember off the top of my head what the number is, to 37 players under contract next year. This team needs to be re-signed. And with one guy taking up over $50 million a year, possibly, and you just traded away 8 high-value draft picks, you're setting yourself up for failure. He could come in and maybe you could get Courtland Sutton back on a cheap deal, but let's be real. Why would he? Right now, I don't know if Courtland Sutton wants to come back to Denver. I mean, we're wasting his prime. It's the Von Miller argument, but that's going to be a conversation for another day.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, just getting back really quick to that second half, even though we end up obviously really not putting up any additional points, we did end up looking somewhat good for a brief moment as we started getting our passes to the tight ends, not outside the numbers, but over the middle. And all of a sudden, Albert O, Noah Fant got involved. Even Courtland Sutton came up with a catch or two that looked pretty good. I know that's prevent defense, but it seemed like it was really funny that all of a sudden, at the end of the game, everything that we've been preaching, getting that ball over the middle, it started working, and actually we started getting yards down the field. My question is, and this will be the last question I think that I'll have for you, Matt.
Got it.
Is there something wrong with Teddy Bridgewater, at least in his mind? We had a Facebook user that popped up a little bit earlier and said maybe the panic sheet could have tackled Darius Slay. That was about the first play that I've ever seen Teddy Bridgewater give up on. Had an opportunity to make a tackle on him, didn't really go for it. But then at the end of the game, with his throws and not even getting it close to a receiver on 4th down when you have literally nothing to lose, right? There's nothing that you're going to – if you throw the interception, unless you're just looking for stats, there's nothing that is going to go wrong in that situation. You throw the interception, they kneel on the ball, the game's over, just like it was at the end of the game anyway, when you throw it over his head and turn the ball back over to him. Is there something wrong with Teddy?
Well, first of all, I'll highlight the whether we want to doubt toughness or not, Teddy Bridgewater made a business decision when he chose not to dive in at Darius Slay. I mean, he understands his natural ability and realized that he probably would get trucked anyways. I think it's a lack of toughness. Sure, whatever. I'm going to beat up on him on it, but it was a business decision.
Okay.
Real quick to go back to the overall question. I'll leave it like this. Teddy Bridgewater is like a very delicate watch clock. He's very strict on timing. Everything has to be grooving correctly. It has a system. It has an order. And when we're doing this, it's not there. He's thrown off. His timing's messed up. He's discombobulated up here, and it throws it off. He needs to be taken care of. He needs to be, those gears are moving correctly. The running game is being efficient. He's got the timing up here right. He's got the connection right. If he doesn't have that, then we see these awful, awful throws.
Yeah, I think that, man, great analysis, Matt. One of the things that I think that I've seen, and I guess you pointed to it, even looking at his instances where he's taking sacks, right? The guys are covered, and it's, again, all of a sudden all those cogs and those gears get clogged up, and he's not really sure what to do. He doesn't take great sacks. He doesn't throw the ball out of bounds well for an incompletion. He ends up. There was a couple of those plays where he's thrown it away, and it was almost putting it in the hands of defenders rather than getting it thrown away. A great analysis, man, to say, hey, if all the cogs aren't working, all of a sudden it jams up, and he's in a different position all of a sudden. He doesn't know what to do, and he makes bad decisions.
Yeah, he's a dependent variable. That's what he is. But we could sit here and we could talk quarterbacks. We've been in this situation for 6 consecutive seasons now. So we can sit here and go back and forth on what we need to do and who it is. Bottom line is Broncos dropped the ball today. But, we're going to wrap it up here today. We just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight on 4th&99. It's always a pleasure, Keith, to come in and discuss football with you. Before we head out, please come check us out on any of our social media platforms. We're on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook group page. If you're on Facebook, you're on YouTube, hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the notification so you know when we're going live. We love to have comments. We appreciate all the engagement. Once again, we got to thank Willow Seasonings and Blends LLC for allowing us to come, live to you guys tonight. Once again, put a little spice in your life like the Broncos needed today. But we'll catch you next time. We'll be live this Wednesday at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. See you next time.
Everybody know that I kill it.